There have been a lot of headlines about estrangement lately, but is it really an epidemic? Well, 29% of Americans report being estranged from an immediate family member. 27% of American adults have cut off a family member, lasting an average of 4.5 years. 85% report going no contact for at least 12 months. And 95% of estrangements are initiated by the adult child. Although more daughters tend to cut ties, estrangement between parents and sons can be longer lasting. And it's not just in the US. Estrangement seems to be affecting the entire Western world. Why are so many kids cutting parents out of their lives? Before we go on, you need to know that this is my hypothesis about estrangement. My goal here is to present some unique viewpoints for your consideration, and you can let me know what you think down in the comments. But please, watch the entire video before you start banging away on the keyboard, and please, be polite. All right, grab your favorite beverage and settle into a comfy chair, because I need a few minutes to take you on a generational journey that gives you the background you need to fully understand what's happening today. For context, I'm old Gen X, and my kids are at the very end of the millennial generation. The vast majority of my viewers on this channel are baby boomers, with Gen X being the next largest cohort. Only 19% of my viewers are under the age of 35, and they sure leave a lot of not nice comments. Our kids today have grown up in one of the most prosperous eras of human history, and most parents I know try to give their kids a better childhood than what they experienced. So, were we as parents really that bad? Mark Twain once said, "History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme." So let's zoom out to the 30,000-foot view. And my thinking is that rising estrangement in the Western world is a symptom of much larger societal problems. And this has everything to do with the cycle of history that we are in right now. That was predicted way back in 1997. Neil Howe and the late William Strauss were historians who looked back over hundreds of years of human history, and they found something really interesting. They discovered patterns of history that repeat every 80 to 100 years like clockwork. Within this long cycle called a saeculum, there are 4 distinct generational phases, each lasting 20 to 25 years, called turnings. These turnings are recurring periods of awakening, prosperity, unraveling, and crisis. Think of them as seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. What's fascinating is how each of the 4 living generations of people, from young to old, respond to these turnings given the stage of life they're in. Now stay with me, because how these generations interact within historical events has everything to do with estrangement today. So here in the US, the prior 4th turning, or winter, ran roughly from 1929 to 1946 during the Great Depression and World War II. The silent generation was born during this time, and there are only 19 million of them still with us. These are the only people alive who remember the horrors of deprivation, genocide, and total world war. This generation forged a mindset of frugality and resilience out of necessity, and they were often perceived as passive. They steered clear of the 1960s radicalism and remained cautious during the Cold War, but many supported, subtly, transformative movements like civil rights. On the technology front, the silent generation transitioned from radio to television to the beginnings of space exploration. So next came a first turning, or spring, running from about 1946 to 1964. This was the post-war boom and American high, and it was a period of worldwide expansion. The baby boomers were born into this era, with 70 million of them still with us. They grew up amidst the optimism of prosperity in 2-parent households where people could afford to buy houses and cars and a nice life for their family. They faced Cold War tensions, the Kennedy assassination, Vietnam War, civil rights, and other countercultural movements, not to mention a whole bunch of groundbreaking groundbreaking technology. And all of these pivotal events shaped their diverse worldview, inspiring subsequent societal transformations like environmentalism and the women's movement and gay rights and the sexual revolution and consumer culture. Then came the second turning, think summer, from 1964 to 1984, during the consciousness revolution, which was an anti-establishment cultural awakening. Gen X was born into this era, with roughly 65 million of us still here in the US. Now, as Gen Xers, we grew up with the fear of nuclear annihilation. We saw stagflation and Watergate. In the 70s, we saw the end of the Cold War, the rise of MTV, and a roller coaster of economic highs and lows. We were the latchkey kids, often with both parents working outside the home, and that taught us self-reliance. The Challenger disaster, AIDS epidemic, 80s excess, and the fall of the Berlin Wall, all of these shaped our worldview, and we started out in an analog world, and then we motored right into the digital age, embracing early internet and mobile phones with pragmatism and a touch of cynicism. As a reminder, baby boomers and Gen Xers are the parents who are now facing estrangement. All right, so next came the third turning, or fall, and unraveling. And this was from 1984 to 2008. This was an era of neoliberalism, the tech bubble, and the war on terror. Millennials were born during this time, and they currently number around 72 million. This generation matured alongside the internet's ascent and global events like 9/11 and the 2008 financial crisis. Navigating economic challenges and significant student debt, millennials spurred the rise of e-commerce, online streaming, and the gig economy. Prioritizing sustainability and social justice, they've been pivotal in movements like LGBTQ+ rights, Black Lives Matter, and blending analog childhoods, think VHS players, with digital adulthood, think tablets and smartphones. They have a passion for innovation, and they've been reshaping industries and societal norms wherever they go. Now stick with me here, because it all comes together in the current fourth turning, which began roughly in 2008 with the great financial crisis, where older generations lost huge chunks of hard-earned savings in the stock market and the following real estate crash. So fourth turnings are marked by a profound societal crisis. They are often ignited by accumulation of long-building tensions. They're a time of great uncertainty and upheaval, and they often involve war or revolution, where institutional life is destroyed and rebuilt in response to perceived threat to survival. And they often end in a call for collective action and shared sacrifice. The dynamics between generations in a fourth turning are crucial, as younger generations come of age during this period, often playing a pivotal role in the reshaping of the future, while older generations are called to lead through incredibly turbulent times. Values are redefined, the nation's identity can undergo a significant shift that will likely have a lasting impact on the future of our country. So that's the overarching umbrella that we're under right now as we face our various estrangements. Bringing it back to you, the estranged parent, whether you're a baby boomer, Gen X, or maybe you're even an older millennial who's worried about your kids doing this to you, society is changing, but is it for the better? In the US today, we are more divided than ever before. People are struggling financially. They're more hostile. Almost 1/3 of families are experiencing estrangement. It's like we're losing the heart and soul of America, that can-do, work-together spirit that made this country great. Many individual and collective decisions over the years have led us to the unintended consequences that we are now facing, including parental estrangement, which is just another nail in the coffin of Western civilization. What are the other symptoms of societal decay? Well, here are 7 more to chew on. Number 1, rising individualism. Western culture now glorifies unique identities above all else, dividing people by race, gender, politics, and so-called woke ideology, this is leading us to rigid thinking where it's an us versus them mindset. So for those who are not expressly with us, that means they're against us, with many prioritizing their own success over caring for other people. Our culture seems to be becoming more and more narcissistic. Number 2, institutional corruption. Political and bureaucratic corruption infects just about every level of government, including schools and universities, where ideological indoctrination of young minds in many cases delivers dogmatic thinking disguised as critical thinking, further feeding the polarization of America, Canada, and probably others. Number 3, declining work ethic and the rise of the isms. Socialism, communism, Marxism, authoritarianism. All of these give more power to government to coddle, control, and manage citizen lives, which leads to apathy and entitlement. This might work for the younger generation because given the crap economic environment that they've graduated into with a ton of debt and few jobs, which we'll talk about in a minute, who wouldn't want a universal basic income so that, you can sit around and make TikToks and play games all day? Number 4, fading family values. Society and popular culture have moved toward alternative lifestyles, shifting away from traditional family values, the bedrock of human civilization since the beginning of time. Families split by divorce or those laboring as single parents in a difficult economy may face a greater challenge delivering childhood experiences required for society to continue in a cohesive fashion. Now, I know most parents are doing the very best they can given their circumstances. But when families stop helping each other, when they break up and alienate each other, the resulting problems with the kids as they try to cope can bleed into the schools, which can lead to overburdening teachers with behavioral problems that are now disrupting the classroom. So schools step in to pick up the slack, but they don't have enough money, so they lobby for newly printed federal funds to address the need. More on that in a moment. And in time, we all learn to become more state dependent. The more the government provides, and social media, which we'll also get to in a minute, the less people need real life family support, turning to friends and others instead. The point is, when nuclear families are destroyed and government steps in to pick up the slack, a chain of events begins in society that eventually leads to adult children feeling free to delete family from their lives with zero sense of obligation to the people who raised them, because government and their friends and their found family will take care of them. And so the social contract is broken. Number 5, social media tribalism. Kids are literally growing up addicted to social media and the dopamine hits it provides. They swipe for hours on end, jumping on each new trend for likes and loves and adoration, freely attacking anyone who disagrees with their worldview that they learned in school or online. Studies are just beginning to come out on how this affects neurological development, so that'll be interesting to see. But if you doubt the power of social media to fuel an angry mob toward utter destruction in a very short time, watch Johnny Harris's documentary on how viral memes on Facebook led to actual genocide in Burma. The link is below, which leads us to the big leagues, where social media is the perfect tool for creating this next symptom of Western decay. Number 6, mass formation psychosis. This happens when a society of people have become decoupled from one another and have free-floating anxiety. It's because they can't make sense of what's truly happening. They feel threatened, but they can't pinpoint exactly why. So people in this state are easily focused by a leader, events, or even a viral meme, just like hypnosis. They can literally become hypnotized and be led anywhere. This effect is almost cultish, leading them to denounce and sever ties with anyone who disagrees with their worldview. How many people on Facebook unfriended those who supported Trump? How many people blocked those who questioned taking an inadequately tested vaccine? The COVID hysteria is a perfect example of this phenomenon in action, as was Hitler's Germany. I've linked a video in the description below that explains this concept in detail. And this brings us to what many think is the root cause, but isn't. Number 7. U.S. fiscal mismanagement. Rising U.S. debt and consumer price inflation are just symptoms that point to the root of our problem, so pay attention. The United States government and its dealer, the Federal Reserve, continue to conjure up more dollars out of thin air to pay for wars, bureaucracies, and more bureaucracies, which makes everything more expensive for all of us, especially young people just trying to get started with their lives. Now stay with me, it's gonna make sense, and it does feed back into your estrangement. Rising prices cause a lot of anxiety for a lot of people as .gov continually corrupts our unit of trade, the US dollar. Every new dollar they create devalues the dollar that you worked for in your wallet. This dollar is a medium of exchange. It's a symbol of trust, actual trust. Trust that you can trade it for something of value when you need to. The more they diminish it, the more trust is destroyed in our society. Here's another way to think about it. It's like the US government is an addict, and the Federal Reserve System is the drug dealer. And the dollars they create and artificially pump into the economy, they're like the dopamine, the high that we seek. Natural levels of dopamine, the result of hard work, achievement, and doing good for others, is good. But getting an average 7.7 times the amount of dopamine into your system every year since 2008, which is the amount by which the money supply has risen in the US since then, it's not natural, it's not good. It looks like this, and it leads to impairment. We, the American taxpayer, now owe almost $34 trillion to our creditors. Here's what that looks like. Yes, it's almost 4.5 stacks of dollar bills piled from the earth to the moon, which is 283,900 miles away. This number is literally so big, it's mathematically impossible to pay back at this point. The only two ways out are default or hyperinflation. So what does all this have to do with estrangement? When people can't afford the basics of life, they tend to freak out. They feel anxious and depressed and stressed because they're worried about their future, their literal survival. They're not sure the root cause. Life just seems unfair, so they seek comfort on social media and maybe at universities, and they find safety in ideological groups that provide answers and allegiance. But they expect absolute loyalty to the collective, a collective that often encourages people to jettison toxic people or anyone who disagrees with them, including family. The corruption of money, government, and public institutions, along with our addiction to social media for likes, loves, and validation, where we can be as nasty as we want, hiding behind our screen names, leaving holier than thou comments to make ourselves feel better. I mean, just watch who swarms into the comments beneath this video. They're gonna beat everyone else into submission with their labels and judgments and proclamations based on watching half a video, according to my analytics. Not to mention social media's superpower of fueling mass hysteria at a moment's notice. But really, who has time to verify anything anymore? Because the average human attention span is down to 8.25 seconds, and everyone seems to have ADHD, so snap judgments are the norm because everybody just says this all day long, and nobody can focus on anything anymore. Oh, yeah. You're a narcissist, and racist, oh yeah, and white supremacist, yep, toxic, bigot, yep, type that, move on. Since the pandemic, it has been widely reported that the US is facing a mental health crisis, which is a whole nother story. But not everybody can afford professional help. And these days, that professional help is more likely to recommend that you go no contact or estrange family members because they're toxic than they ever did in years past. I wonder why. So, my estranged friends, beyond the mistakes we made as parents, estrangement is just another symptom of substantial societal decay. We need to find ways to start having real conversations again, or this is going to end in war. For estranged parents who want a more intimate place to connect, we do have a private paid community that helps support the channel. So if you want more information, there's a link below. Next time, we're going to share the story of another estranged mom who lost and then found her son again.